There are moments in life when destiny places a choice before us. Not a choice between good and evil, not a choice between right and wrong, but a choice between blessings. Imagine waking up one ordinary morning only to discover that heaven itself has placed 3 gifts before you. One gift is a child, the answer to years of lonely prayers. Another is endless wealth, enough riches to erase every struggle forever. And the last is something people rarely notice: patience, quiet, invisible, uncelebrated. But there is one condition: you may choose only one. The moment you make your choice, the other 2 will disappear from your life forever. Most people would rush toward riches. Some would hold tightly to the child they always dreamed of. Very few would choose patience. But long ago, in a forgotten village, hidden deep among forests and mountains, a poor couple made a choice that changed their lives forever. Because sometimes the smallest decision brings the greatest miracle. Far away from busy cities and crowded roads, there was a tiny village surrounded by endless green forests. Birds sang from sunrise until dusk. There lived a man named Noah and his wife, Minnie. They were kind people, gentle people, but life had not been easy for them. Their house was old and small. Rain leaked through the roof during storms. Their tiny farm barely produced enough food to survive each season. Yet poverty was not their deepest pain. For 10 long years, Noah and Minnie prayed for a child. Every festival, they watched other parents lifting laughing children into the air. Every market day, they heard tiny voices calling out, "Mother, Father," and every night they returned to a quiet house with empty corners and untouched dreams. Sometimes Minnie would sit beside the small window and stare at the moon for hours. And in the darkness, she would whisper softly, "I wonder what our child would have looked like." Noah would hear her words but say nothing, because his own heart was breaking too. The years passed slowly. At first, the villagers comforted them. "Be patient," they said. "Your blessing will come." But after many years, even the comforting words stopped. People began avoiding the subject altogether. Some women pitied Minnie, others whispered cruel things behind her back. Noah hated hearing those whispers. Yet every morning, he still smiled kindly at everyone, because pain teaches some people bitterness and others compassion. One winter evening, Noah returned home after selling vegetables in the market. He opened the door and found Minnie crying quietly beside the fire. Without speaking, he sat beside her. For a long time, neither said anything. Then she finally whispered, "Do you think heaven forgot us?" "No," he said gently. "I think heaven is teaching us how to wait." One scorching afternoon during harvest season, Noah and Minnie worked in the dry field beneath the blazing sun. The heat was unbearable. After hours of work, Minnie said, "We have no water left." She said softly, "I'll go to the river." She picked up an old clay pot and began walking down the narrow forest path. As she neared the riverbank, something felt strange. The air became still. Even the birds stopped singing. Minnie slowed her steps. Then suddenly she froze. Her heart slammed against her chest. Lying beside the river were 3 tiny babies, wrapped carefully in white cloth. Perfectly calm, perfectly silent. For one terrifying moment, Minnie thought she was dreaming. Her fingers loosened. The clay pot slipped from her hands. Crash! It shattered against the stones. The babies did not cry. They simply looked at her with wide, peaceful eyes. Minnie staggered backward in shock before turning and running as fast as she could. "Noah!" she screamed. "Noah, come quickly!" Noah rushed after her through the trees. When they reached the riverbank, he stopped in disbelief. The babies were still there, 3 children, no more than a few months old, each wrapped carefully in beautiful white cloth unlike anything the villagers had ever seen. But there was something even stranger. Each cloth had a single word written across it. The first baby's cloth read, "Patience." The second read, "Birth," and the third read, "Riches." The first child was a little girl with calm eyes and a peaceful smile. The other 2 were boys. Noah and Minnie looked around desperately. "Hello!" Noah shouted into the forest. "Who left these children here?" No answer came, only the sound of the river. The couple searched for hours, but they found no footprints, no car tracks, no sign of parents. It was as if the children had appeared from heaven itself. As the sun began to set, Minnie held the little girl tightly against her chest. "We cannot leave them here," she whispered. Noah nodded slowly, and together they carried the 3 babies home. Everything changed after that day. The once silent house became alive with laughter. For the first time in many years, Minnie no longer cried herself to sleep. The children grew quickly. Patience was gentle and wise beyond her years. She rarely argued. She listened more than she spoke. Birth was energetic and fearless, always climbing trees, always asking questions. Riches was clever and ambitious. He dreamed of grand things beyond the village. Though the children were different, they loved one another deeply. And Noah and Minnie loved them equally. The villagers were amazed. Some called the children a miracle. Others called them mysterious. A few feared them, but Noah didn't care. For the first time in his life, his house felt complete. On the evening of the children's 5th birthday, Noah and Minnie prepared a small celebration. The table was simple: fresh bread, warm soup, wild berries from the forest. The children laughed happily beneath lantern light. But after dinner, something changed. The 3 children became unusually serious. Patience stood first. Her calm eyes met those of her parents. "We must tell you something," she said softly. Noah smiled nervously. "What is it?" Birth lowered his head. Riches folded his hands quietly. Then Patience spoke words that froze the room. "We cannot remain together forever." Silence filled the house. Minnie frowned in confusion. "What do you mean?" Riches answered this time. "You must choose only one of us." Noah stared at them. "What are you saying?" "If you choose me," Riches said, "wealth will fill your life. But the others must leave." "If you choose me," Birth whispered, "you will finally have the family you dreamed of. But the others cannot stay." Then Patience stepped forward. "And if you choose me, you must let the others go." Minnie's eyes filled with tears. How could we choose between our children? But the children remained silent, because the choice had already been placed before them. That night, Noah and Minnie did not sleep. "If we choose riches," he said, "we could finally escape poverty." Minnie stared into the darkness. "But if we choose birth," she whispered, "we would finally have the child we prayed for all those years." Again and again they argued. Wealth or family? Family or security? Every answer felt wrong. Near midnight, Noah finally sighed. "There is one person who may know what to do." At dawn, they climbed the hill outside the village, where an old monk lived alone in a tiny stone temple. The monk was known for his wisdom. People traveled from distant lands to seek his advice. When Noah and Minnie finished telling their story, the old monk closed his eyes. For a very long time, he said nothing. Finally, the monk opened his eyes and smiled gently. "Choose patience." The couple looked stunned. "Why?" Noah asked. The monk's voice was calm. "Because riches gained without patience disappear quickly." He turned toward Minnie. "And blessings received without patience are rarely appreciated." Then he looked at both of them. "But when patience enters a home, everything else eventually finds its way there too." That evening, the family gathered together one final time. Minnie's hands trembled. Tears filled her eyes. Noah took a deep breath. "We have made our choice," he said quietly. The children waited silently. Then Minnie whispered, "We choose patience." Birth lowered his head sadly. Riches gave a small smile. Neither argued, neither cried. Quietly, the 2 boys packed their small belongings. Minnie could barely stand as she watched them walk toward the door. Every step felt like losing pieces of her heart. At the doorway, Birth turned back. "Thank you for loving us," he said softly. Then the 2 boys disappeared down the path toward the river, and the night became silent once more. Birth and Riches walked for hours beneath the moonlight until they reached the great river beyond the village. The water roared wildly. The current crashed against sharp stones. Birth stepped forward first, but the river pushed him back violently. Riches tried next. The river refused him too. Again and again they attempted to cross, but it was impossible. At last, the two boys stood silently beneath the stars. Then Riches smiled. He said quietly, "We cannot go where patience is not welcomed." Birth nodded, and together they turned around. Back at the house, Noah and Minnie sat beside the dying fire in complete silence. Neither spoke. The emptiness in the room felt unbearable. Then suddenly, knock, knock. Noah hurried to the door. Standing outside were Birth and Riches. Minnie gasped. "You came back?" Birth grinned. "We tried to cross the river, but the river would not let us leave," Riches added. Then both boys smiled warmly. "So we returned, and now," Patience said from behind them, "we will remain together forever." From that day forward, everything slowly changed. Not overnight, not instantly, because real blessings rarely arrive in a rush. But little by little, their farm became fruitful. The harvests grew larger each season. Their animals multiplied. Their home expanded. Years later, Noah and Minnie became known as one of the happiest families in the village. Not because they were rich, not because life became perfect, but because they understood something most people never learn. Patience is not weakness. Patience is power. Many people spend their lives chasing riches. Others chase success, love, or recognition. But those who abandon patience often lose the very things they seek, because blessings forced too quickly rarely stay. But patience builds foundations strong enough to hold every blessing that comes afterward. So remember this: if you choose riches first, you may lose peace. If you choose rewards first, you may lose purpose. But if you choose patience first, life has a mysterious way of returning everything you need. Because patience is not empty waiting, it is quiet faith. And sometimes that quiet faith brings miracles home.